Hello everyone, it's me Matt, appreciate you stopping by. On today's video, we're discussing anti-aircraft artillery, and the threats to us as militaries around the world are ever changing with both the conventional and technological advances. But one thing that stayed true, anti-aircraft artillery has been around for a very long time and it's still being utilised heavily today. The root cause of this video is basically a rhetorical question. As many of you are aware, we still need conventional anti-aircraft weapons, but on what context? Do we still need projectiles that are sent through the sky blasting shrapnel all over targets? Or do we need the more advanced capabilities of anti-aircraft artillery, such as lasers, which really opens up the realm of total new technology advances and the way in which anti-aircraft artillery works? A lot of people have spoken to me in the past telling me of how, missiles are the way forward, but are they? There is so much advancement now in terms of anti-aircraft conventional artillery that it's something I really want to try and discuss and see if it does still have added value on the modern battlefield. First of all, let's take a look at Rheinmetall's version of a new upgrade they put on their anti-aircraft artillery. Now, unfortunately, due to YouTube's awesome copyright laws and this video having music on it that's copyrighted, I have to go through this myself. So basically, the projectile is now being scanned and programmed from time to flight as it leaves the barrel magnetically. So as it leaves, it is calculating exactly where it needs to hit on the target, and the radar from the gun system is seeing where the target is and programming the round as it comes through the barrel. Now, this isn't a huge change in technology. There's a lot of these kind of weapon systems out there, but it's the way in which each round is programmable as it comes through the barrel to make almost a wave of shrapnel, very similar to flak. You could pretty much say this is the modern day flak capability, and the way in which these rounds are programmable at such high speeds and for such small targets is a huge advancement in the way in which conventional munitions work. So there you have it. There is some pretty cool developments going on with the conventional side of anti-aircraft artillery, and clearly it's not something that has been neglected from militaries around the world, from the high-tech, advanced, highly funded militaries to some of the militaries that have almost near zero funding. Anti-aircraft artillery is also something that can be utilized on two spectrums, not only engaging aircraft or helicopters or whatever else is in the sky, including that of drones, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second, but that of a ground capability. We've all seen many times footage of these guns being turned into absolute meat churners on the battlefield when putting thousands upon thousands of rounds down onto enemy positions in the context of ground attack. And it kind of opens up the door of saying, well, if these things can be used in a ground attack role and an anti-aircraft role, why would you ever get rid of them? There is discussion about this, however. The problem with anti-aircraft weaponry is it requires a lot of ammunition. Ammunition is heavy. It is also very logistically burdening. It can cause huge amounts of time, effort, and logistics to get these kind of weapon systems on the battlefield effectively and to continue feeding them. Something that is just as much complicated, though, in the anti-aircraft world is missiles. Missiles are extremely complicated and sensitive bits of equipment. An artillery piece, like an anti-aircraft gun, however, not so much. You keep feeding it bullets, and for the most part, if you've maintained it and looked after it, it will keep churning out the lead all day long. If you accidentally bump a missile en route, or one of the tubes is, malaligned, or the sighting system is not quite working, you have a lot of problems. And on top of that, radar is an extremely complex piece of equipment. But we could say we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here. When you're looking at a weapon system that can engage up to about 5,000 meters to something that can engage up to 50 kilometers, there's obviously going to be a huge deterrence factor. Anti-aircraft guns are really utilized for the short-range engagements, whether it be helicopters, low-flying close air support aircraft, or drones, which is where I also want to then speak upon why there is a massive positive need for anti-aircraft guns. Drones are here to stay. They're advancing across the globe at an extraordinary rate, and they will do for some time. Of course, we're looking at the standardized drone that we think of nowadays, or these smaller sort of DJI GoPro mounted drones. The Reaper is quite the extreme of drone capability here, long engagement, counterinsurgency kind of weapon system, but the drones that I'm more concerned about and something that is more applicable to anti-aircraft artillery is the smaller type drones, the drones that can mass in swarms. We've all seen the latest Olympus Has Fallen movie where thousands of them storm across a lake to kill the president. And you kind of giggle at it, but the reality is, folks, is that is something that many militaries around the world are trying to develop. Swarm technology. Anti-aircraft artillery can keep up with that threat. Missile technology not so much. You're not going to spend $180,000 launching 2 missiles to try and take out what could potentially be up to 100 of these small micro or miniature type drones working in a swarm type fashion. It's scary to know that these kind of drones could be, amassed and engage a battle group, whether it be with, IEDs or small arms on these things, but they are a massive risk in the future and something I would love to do a dedicated video on in the future. But anti-aircraft artillery is definitely very poised to take out these kind of systems, because if you have 100 of these things flying through the sky, you could use 2 anti-aircraft weapon systems with the conventional munitions to create a huge plethora of shrapnel to try and prevent this swarm coming towards you, which is why I really do think anti-aircraft artillery is going nowhere. Many people have told me, and it's really interesting to hear their argument behind why it should be gotten rid of, is that it is just not able to engage at longer ranges. You have to think about this from a broader perspective. If you're being engaged by aircraft, for the most part you're going to be engaged at a high altitude, whether it be with joint direct attack munitions, JDAMs, things like that, or strike capability that is way beyond visual range. You don't even know it's coming, and that is to a very, very technologically advanced nation or military that is engaging you with those kind of weapons. However, we all know the reality is that helicopters, low-flying close escort aircraft, such as, the Super Tucano, which a lot of militaries are looking at, sort of these propeller-based aircraft that can come in, swoop, engage, and pull out again instead of spending, upwards of $2 million just to get an F-35 or an A-10 on the runway. A small little prop plane could cause a huge amount of damage. Using missiles against 10 to 15 of those things may be effective on the short term, say using Stinger missiles, but eventually you will run out of those missiles. Missiles also have a high malfunction risk, okay? Depending on the weather or the environment that they're being worked on, you also have the jamming capability of certain weapon systems that can prevent missiles from engaging its target. Of course, missiles are getting hugely advanced too, but nothing stops the beautiful, timed charge of a high explosive warhead exploding mid-air. There's not really much you can do about that when an aircraft is flying in the sky, other than, trying to outmaneuver the fire that's been placed upon you, and normally by that time it's too late anyway. And anti-aircraft weapon systems don't normally work in pairs or ones or twos. They work in a whole host of a battery, and that's how they just create a swarm of fire into the air. These smaller propeller-type planes or smaller close escort planes and helicopters are really what we're looking at with anti-aircraft artillery. And even then, when I have the discussion and the debate with these individuals saying, but we still need anti-aircraft guns for those kind of threats. Nope, missiles can take it. We've got Stingers, we've got all these, the missiles are getting cheaper, they're getting faster, they're getting more capable of knocking out aircraft even with the jamming capabilities. And I have to smile because it makes me wonder, who's paying for all this? Which military, if they went into a conventional warfare situation, is going to spend $1 billion on an anti-aircraft battery that uses purely missiles to engage low-flying threats? It's just totally out to lunch, and which is why I always find it very interesting when having a debate with someone about why anti-aircraft artillery is useless. A lot of people have also said to me that the older school weapon systems are completely redundant. As you saw in the previous video there from Rheinmetall, they've got some pretty cool tech coming out. They've got, charges that can be, and fuses that can be primed through the barrel, which is nothing really new. But that kind of technology is just as much of expensive cost than it is for the missiles can be. I'm sure a box of 1,000 of that kind of projectile ammunition going through that Rheinmetall gun, and the gun itself, is extremely expensive. And it adds up. With an older school weapon system, you've got old school weapons and old school munitions, which can be used all day long. But, as I said before, it just adds that complexity of having to find and carry all this ammunition onto the battlefield. Another interesting concept that I've heard people talk about is, what about if the weapon system is totally out to lunch when it comes to effectiveness? What if the rounds aren't able to penetrate or create such a dash of shrapnel in the sky that's not even able to stop the aircraft? A couple of people have told me that they've seen footage, and I've never been proven of this fact, of Hind D helicopters having a spray of shrapnel from 40mm Bofors and continue flying. Now, I work in the aviation industry, and I can safely say that if a 40mm Bofor round, 1, 2, 3, or however many rounds being shot into the sky, come anywhere near the rotor blades or the engine of a Hind D, it's coming out the sky. I'm not saying that a Hind D can't take that kind of beating, but to say that 40mm Bofor rounds is not going to stop a Hind D, I'm very, very shocked by that. Conventional munitions, although not huge in size nowadays, we're not looking at, 105mm guns firing into the sky like World War II and, World War I, of these big old guns blasting. It's not quite the case now. Now we're looking at smaller, faster, more high volume projectiles. Trust me when I say this, they're just as deadly as any other larger caliber flak gun. Flak, as known in World War II, was really the concept of projecting a weapon system at a predetermined time ahead of the bombers flying into it. In World War II, of course, this was perfected by the Germans and, of course, the Allied nations at the time to basically preemptively set a huge amount of shrapnel ahead of a bomber group. This took a huge amount of planning, timing, mathematics, and gunnery skill to actually put the amount of flak on target as needed. We don't need that anymore. Anti-aircraft artillery in its conventional form uses radar, very effective radar. Of course, it still uses the standard sighting system, but for the most part, the predictory kind of weapon engagements aren't needed because the radar does it all for you. You're basically just pressing a button. The rounds are going to be predetermined to engage and explode at a certain timed period in the sky, and the shrapnel or flak will be made in effect. A more modern day system like that, again, adds to the fact of effectiveness. People say, well, if it's not going to be able to aim correctly, then it's not going to be able to actually engage the target. Technology has got to the point where it's not adding a huge amount of added cost to the munitions, but a little bit more to the weapon system itself. Of course, when you put radar or things on anti-aircraft weapons, it's going to add a lot of cost, but not an extraordinary amount of cost. The same radar would have to be placed upon a missile system. So for those of you who do feel that anti-aircraft artillery is not really capable anymore, it's starting to get old, we should just give it all up and go straight to missiles and advance our technology in reducing cost of missiles, or larger volumes of missiles, or different kinds of missiles that can produce flak in the sky, I would have to disagree. I think anti-aircraft artillery is here to stay for the long haul. I really hope it does. It deserves to. It's been here since the dawn of artillery time and aircraft being flying in the sky. And it needs to be consistently updated. Rheinmetall has gone to town with it. We see a lot of it actually on naval ships too, the way in which they have provided a weapon system that not only engages aircraft, but also surface ships. Missiles, normally, for the most part, other than things like Javelin, don't really focus on two different concepts of fighting, ground and air. If you have a ground target, for the most part, a lot of the modern-day anti-aircraft missiles don't have the capability of knocking down that ground target. Guess what? The anti-aircraft gun does, if it's mounted in the certain way that it should be on the platform that it's moving around on. For ships, that is perfect. You want something that can do two jobs: engage surface vessels and aircraft. In the common battle space of the battlefield today, that is even more important. It can engage infantry, engage small armed vehicles, it can engage heavy armored vehicles, maybe not take them out, but definitely dilapidate them to the point that they can't be used. So, if you have a debate about why anti-aircraft artillery isn't needed anymore, I would love to hear your opinion in the comments section below. You can also come chat with me on Discord, message me on Facebook. I would love to hear your debate. I don't want to argue, of course. I love to debate and talk to people about these kind of things. But let me know your opinion. It's an interesting topic to discuss. A lot of people do challenge me on it. And, as much as I have respect for anti-aircraft missiles and how effective they are at doing what they do, I don't think we're going to see them consistently replace the entire plethora of anti-aircraft weapon systems out there today. If you did enjoy today's video, please leave me a like, and as I mentioned before, leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you to everyone who is subscribed as a member to my channel. I really appreciate you all, and thank you also to those who have supported my Patreon funding in the description box below, where that link is found to get to my webpage for Patreon. Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to financially support me and my channel. And for those of you who just stopped by today, thank you also. You can go check me out and all my other social media links, etc. in the description box below too. And if you do want to be notified of any upcoming videos, please click the little bell by the subscribe button so you can be notified for videos next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.